So hi, Tamar. We're going to start shortly. Just hi to everybody. We're waiting for more people to come on, but it's great to see you.
Thank you, Gili. Hi, welcome. Shana Tova.
Thank you. Shana Tova. Shana Tova. Exciting times.
It is.
As always. Great. So we're just waiting for a few more people to get on before we start. Thank you for everybody for joining in. We're not starting yet, but thank you for joining. This is another conversation with Partners for Progressive Israel, with Tamar Zandberg, and we are very excited to very shortly delve into all things post-election in Israel right now.
Okay, so hi everybody. Here it's good evening. I guess it's good, afternoon over there. It is post-elections. Last time we were, the post-elections were right before Pesach, right before Passover. Right now, right before Rosh Hashanah. So we hope not to get the third election before Hanukkah. But let me just start with something like 10 minutes, like review how we see elections, how it was like for us, specifically as Meretz, now the Democratic Union, and generally in Israel and the political system, and in very uncertainty in the times and politics.
And before you start, Tamar, I'd just like to ask that anybody who wants to ask a question, please just type it in the Q&A button. That if you hover your mouse, you'll see a Q&A button. Just type the question anytime, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And Tamar will have to end early, unfortunately, I understand. So we'll try to make it as quick as possible. But just type your answers whenever you feel like it. Thank you.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, so welcome to this conversation again. Thank you, Partners for Progressive Israel, for your partnership and your support throughout the year, and especially during election times, and also for hosting this conversation. As a matter of fact, we ended these elections in mixed emotions, I must say. On the one hand, maybe the biggest achievement and something we are very, very happy about is the fact that basically a clear danger that was possible as the outcome of these elections was prevented and did not happen. We are actually pretty pleased with what didn't happen rather than what did. And that is the fact that Netanyahu and his right-wing ultra-Orthodox bloc could not get a majority of 61 out of the 120 of the Knesset. He went out to these elections hoping to get the 61 bloc only with the extreme right and ultra-Orthodox, trying to get what we called the immunity annexation coalition, trying to get his personal immunity from trial, hoping to escape from being indicted. And he was willing to give everything to his right-wing and ultra-Orthodox partners. And that was a great danger to our values and to our point of view in mainly two main, or three maybe. One is, of course, the basics, foundations of democracy, legislation that would change the relationship between court, Knesset as parliament, and the government. The second is annexation, and you probably heard many of the election promises of Netanyahu before the elections, promised to annex the Jordan Valley, to annex settlements, and basically he declared his intent to annex the entire West Bank. And third is everything that has to do with the civil situation in Israel, state and religion, Shabbat, giving the ultra-Orthodox and together with the extreme right that are also religious, part of the religious bloc, such power, we could see the deterioration in women's rights, of course, nothing to talk about LGBT, and many other issues that are very important for us. This coalition cannot happen. They only have 55. They could not reach the majority of 61. And now the question is, what kind of other government is there? Right now, as we speak, actually, headlines are coming that they talk about what is called a unity government. President Rivlin was very active in trying to bring Netanyahu and Gantz together to talk about what they call unity. We don't fund that kind of unity so much because we believe that it is a unity between two very, very opposite sets of values. And we would like to see a totally different government that would lean on the center left in political cooperation with the joint list and the representatives of the Arab citizens that, of course, we remember that 20% of the citizens of Israel, and that banning them from Israeli politics is, of course, wrong for democracy and also wrong for us politically because they are partners to our bloc. So we don't really know, and we'll have to see in the next coming days. On this Sunday, we start Rosh Hashanah for 3 days, and today, Rivlin declared that he might only give the mission of forming a government after the holidays. So we're looking at something like a week from today. That, of course, a lot can happen. Specifically, if I zoom into our own party, as you know, Meretz went to some kind of a union in these elections under the Democratic Union, Amachaneh Demokrati, together with the member of Knesset Stav Shafir, who left Labor and joined us, and the former Prime Minister Ehud Barak that formed a new party and joined as well. It's no secret that we did have high hopes from this kind of coalition. We thought it could strengthen Meretz and strengthen the left much more. We were looking at a two-digit number of seats, 10 and up. Unfortunately, we ended up with only 5, out of which only 3 are Meretz, which is of course a modest achievement considering the hopes. Nevertheless, on election day, again, like you know, Meretz always has a challenge to cross the threshold, and unfortunately, we had that problem again. And on election day, we were kind of worried, even for that modest and humble achievement. And in the end, we were able to cross and stay alive and stay in the Knesset, even though with only 3 members of Knesset from Meretz, and joined by Stav Shafir and former deputy of Chief of Staff Yair Golan, that is a new candidate in politics. You probably remember him from about, I think, 2 or 3 years ago when he had a speech on the Holocaust Memorial Day, and in a way saying that he identifies processes that happened in Europe in the 30s in our society today, and he got a lot of criticism, and some even say that he was not appointed to be the chief of staff because of that scandal, and he was very proud and very brave to actually point out those things, and now he's a member of Knesset from our faction, so we are proud of that. We are at the moment not part of the talks to form the government. We kind of look at it from a side and kind of somehow call or urge Benny Gantz to not to put so much weight on unity with Netanyahu, but also, and if he does, also check other options like a narrow center-left coalition with us and Labor and the joint list, and maybe one of the ultra-Orthodox parties or both. Right now, it's not happening. Right now, all the weight is put on the unity talks. But things change, you know, every day. So we are watching very closely to see how we can, in what point, if at all, we can dive in. What, of course, we can promise is that we are here, you know, to fight for our values and represent them, no matter coalition or opposition. And we are, again, very, very relieved that the 61 block was prevented and is actually not possible, because that was a true danger to Israeli democracy and, of course, to all the values we believe in. And we were actually at some point during election campaign very, very worried that will come upon us and will actually distort and change Israeli democracy as we know it. So now we take a little bit comfort in that uncertainty and unclarity, and see how it goes in the next few days. So I think I'll stop here for an introduction and open the floor for a conversation or your questions, Billy, or some of the participants, and we can have a more participatory conversation.
Yes. So we have a question from Adam, and it's a question that comes up a lot. Meretz had an internal debate before the election about which path to take, what type of political collaboration with the Jewish-Arab collaboration, and a decision was made to go and create a coalition with Stiv Shapir and Barak. And I just would like to hear your thoughts about the future of the Democratic Union, the reflection on the decision made. Maybe it's too early, but what is the sense of the direction Meretz chose to take? And if you can talk a little bit about Ayman Uda's historic recommendation to Benny Gantz, to recommending Gantz to the president, and in more broadly the future of Jewish-Arab political partnership as you see it going forward.
Yeah. First of all, I do think that Meretz in the last elections took a very, very brave and in retrospect it was proof how important that is to take the road of the Jewish-Arab political partnership. After at least 20 years of total division between Jewish and Arab-Palestinian politics, we understood that leaving 20% of the Israeli population out of the political discourse is both unjust and politically wrong. I mean, of course, democratically and civil, if you take the civil point of view, of course, it's, imagine, the US without the minorities. It's almost unheard of. But also politically, for our bloc, the left is a coalition of minorities. The left is the one that takes the equality and civil rights and human rights to the top of the order of priorities. And Meretz was able to gain 40,000 votes of Israeli Arabs last election that were something like 25% of our entire vote in elections in April. This time, Meretz, in a way that was not very, it didn't go like very, very smoothly, but had some reservations and doubts, took a different path. It chose the Democratic Union with Barak and Stiv Shapir facing more to the Jewish constituency rather than going in depth into the Jewish-Arab partnership. With the, Ehud Barak was a challenge at the beginning because of the past and because of his responsibility in the October 2000 riots and the divide or maybe the split with the Arab population since. I have to mention our friend, member of Knesset Isawi Frej, that in a way led the way, or you know, was kind of led the breakthrough that enabled that unification when he wrote a very keynote article in Haaretz calling Barak to apologize for his responsibility, and Barak took the you know, in Hebrew we say he took the globe, and did it. And that was days before the unification. In a way, it was pointed by many as the breakthrough that enabled that coalition to come to life. Unfortunately, Isawi Frej was number 6 on the list, and when we got 5 seats, he was the one to be left out of the Knesset, which hurt the Jewish-Arab partnership deeply. Take that together with your question about Odess declaration and historic recommendation. Actually, for the second time since the country was in the history of Israel, that the representatives of the Arab population actually recommend, the first time was with Rabin in 1992, and now the second. I think our cue is that the Israeli Arab you know, public or population is actually ready for a more tight and more explicit political cooperation. Personally, I think it is our responsibility to take that hand that is being, you know, given to us, and make the most out of it, because, you know, what is left without his struggles for equality, and especially in times where equality is needed so much in this country, where discrimination and racism, you know, raise their heads. It's true that Meretz did not emphasize that line in the September elections, unlike April. And of course, also the votes, we lost about something like 25 to 30,000 votes in the Arab population in the second elections. I think that from here onwards, this is a agenda that Meretz has to not only take but strongly lead. Personally, I intend to do so with my partners in the Knesset that are not from Meretz, unfortunately, but also with other partners that are right now out of the Knesset or in the civil society. And I think this is a vision that we have to pursue stronger and stronger in the years to come, because, you know, one of the factors that was most significant in the block of the Bibi coalition is the raise in the voting rate of the Arab constituency. That was one of the reasons why the joint list got its power back from 10 to 13 seats. And, you know, it's part of our bloc. And Meretz is the bridge, you know, between the Jewish and Arab, when blue and white are don't have the courage, or not brave enough, unfortunately, to take the extra step and take their recommendation and engage the Arab representatives in their government. For us, it's this is a very, very prominent agenda.
Thank you. And another question is American Jews. How can we support this effort, and how can we, what we shouldn't do, or the question is what we should or shouldn't do in support of progressive politics in Israel and Jewish-Arab political partnership?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I think that your role is very important. I think that right now, generally in politics, not only in Jewish-Arab partnership, we have so much in common in the political situation where both our societies are in. I think the personal friendship between Trump and Netanyahu and the resemblance in the agenda and even methods sometimes, and, you know, attacking the media, leading such conservative lines of policy in many of the issues are very, very similar. And our pushback is also similar because we fight for our values both here and there. And I think that unlike the past, where the left or progressive camp in Israel was very, very small, now we can see that with the new situation, we might expect some changes, and having the right, extreme right, ultra-Orthodox bloc being not so powerful as before. And this is a new opportunity for us that in a way is similar to what is happening in American politics right now. So I think the bridge between us and the agenda and values that most Jewish communities in North America take, and you know, we used to have like the Israel-US relationship, regardless of politics. Now the right, both the Republican right and the Israeli right, made it an alliance between two political groups in a way that I think we have to adopt in order to push back, and we have so much in common. So I think strengthening groups like yourself, like J Street, like NIF, that I know you're very involved in as it is, but I think that it's our job to stress and strengthen the line of thinking that this is the true allies. You know, the progressive in both from two sides of the ocean, the people who believe, of course, in two states, but also in equality, justice, civil rights, etc. I think it's a great opportunity for us right now.
Fantastic. And I'd like to add that we're going to be rolling and spreading, sending more information about that. But the World Zionist Congress elections are coming up. This is our turn to vote. They'll be in January 21st until there's about 2 months to vote. We'll send, make sure you keep your eye on the information, and it's our chance to vote for our progressive values and to join Meretz and others in the World Zionist Congress and promote and fight for these values. This year, we have an unprecedented coalition of Parties for Progressive Israel, Amenu, J Street, and Tuwa, and I'm forgetting many, but Shomer Tzair and the New Israel Fund, all coming together for the first time to fully support the Tikva slate. So there'll be something that we can do and hopefully gain some power. The other question is about gender and specifically about gender politics, women in leadership, women in Knesset, the number of women in Knesset in this election, and what was possible ahead. What kind of future do you see in gaining power for women in Israeli politics?
Yeah, well, this is definitely an issue in politics. The 22nd Knesset, the one that was just elected, is the first in the history of Israel when the number of women going down. We used to have a few Knesset where we set record in the number of women in the Knesset, even though we never got 40%, not to mention 50, which is our percentage in the population. But now it has dropped from over 30% to 22% in the This is a true worry, especially taking into consideration that it's not an accident. We see that as a part of general, conservative state of mind. I think also this is something common to the US and to Israel. The regression in the status of women, inequality, We see a fight over things that were supposed to be taken for granted. For example, now separate campuses or studying days on university campuses are being performed under the excuse that you have to allow ultra-Orthodox to go to university and take courses, but it comes with the demand for separate days of school on campus, which is of course women lectures or professors cannot teach these separate days, etc. We see a regression in the status of women in the army, in the IDF, that used to be leading in equality, and now women are, in a way, pushed aside from many of IDF activities. I think this is something, if I look at the US politics, and I see Elizabeth Warren, for example, or many of the new representatives that were elected in the midterms to Congress, I think that our answer as the progressive camp should be, first of all, set an example and have women leaders, women elected representatives, and show how the 2019 world should look like. It's not done enough yet, but I think this is one of the flags or the new agendas that we have to put very, very high on our vision.
That's great. Thank you. Another question we have is about Meretz's, maybe you can, there's two questions. One of how does Meretz plan to address the other segments of Israeli society, reach out to Russian vote, reach out to other communities, expand the voter base, and the other ones, if you can elaborate, who is going to be, who are the 5 Knesset members who are going to be representing the Meretz actually the 3 that are representing Meretz in the Democratic Union in the Knesset.
Who are the 3?
What's that?
Excuse me, who are the 3?
I'm sorry, Tamar?
I'm sorry, is the question who are the 3?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, our 3 are the chair, Nitzan Horowitz. That was actually, him and I were running against each other after April, after I served for about 1.5 years as a chair, and he won, so he's now the chair. I'm number 2 in Meretz, and number 3 is member of Knesset Ilan Gilon. Number 4 used to be Isawi Fred, that was 6 on the Democratic Union and did not enter. The 2 new ones are, as I mentioned before, Stav Shafir and ex-General Yair Golan. These are our 5. Actually, if the question on demography, if I got it correctly, of the votes of the constituency of Meretz, I must say that looking at the election outcomes, the was more or less the classic of the Democratic Union, was more or less the classic constituency of Meretz. We gained back some of our support in the classic center cities of Meretz. We lost support in the Arab towns and villages, as I mentioned before. So more or less we stayed in the Meretz framework, which is on the one hand is optimistic because we are some kind of an anchor, political and ideological, and we kept our constituency very, very tight together, and even were able to increase it and bring back votes that left us in the past and voted Meretz again. On the other hand, we did not reach out as I said, we lost support in the Arab-Palestinian constituency, and Mizrahi, Russian, we kind of stayed the same and weren't able to reach out more than that. Of course, it's one of the greatest missions to the future, and in a way, I believe that given the break of the blocks, where it's now hopefully it will not be a very tight Bibi block, tight anti-Bibi block. Maybe we'll be able, it will somehow change the entire face of politics, and it would grow to be more diverse even in the left.
And during a unity government, that it seems to be where they're going to try to go first, the possibilities of not having the ultra-Orthodox parties in the coalition advancing things like things you advocate for, like transportation on Shabbat, like civil marriages, progressive agenda that it otherwise has a hard time. How do you see your view in or your role as an opposition in that case? And what would the opposition, you have a sense, will look like or act like?
Well, first of all, obviously we don't know who the opposition will be, how it will look like. It would be very, very different if it would be like the right bloc with some center partners, which we fear that that will be the end of it, that it will end up with a right-wing coalition in partnership with some center factors, or it would be a very wide unity government, or it would be something that right now looks not very feasible, but maybe it will be a more narrow, center-left coalition. So this is very, very different perspectives. Of course, if we right now a small change, but a small chance, but exists, that will sit in a coalition, of course, it would be much easier for us to promote those issues, especially that now we have Blue and White as a very big partner for supporting public transportation on Shabbat, commerce, etc. And Lieberman, a right-wing component, but also with us on the secular issues. This will be very, very different from a government with the ultra-Orthodox and the Zionist Orthodox, the settlement, Jewish home, etc. That in that case, we will again find ourselves in opposition, fighting for these issues like we've always done. These are struggles that we are used to. It will be maybe a little bit hard for us to get used to, being more influential in these issues. But of course, we never leave them, even in opposition. Our ideology is the most important thing for us.
Great. And the last question before we let you go. Blue and White is very ambiguous about what they're going to do about annexation and the occupation, and it's almost ideologically incoherent. What do you think will happen if Gantz becomes prime minister? How would it change anything in terms of the threat of annexation and deepening occupation, or it'll be a little bit more of the same with a different?
Yeah. We hope it will change. We've seen some confusing or mixing declarations of Gantz during election campaign regarding, on the one hand, he did stress his desire or somewhat ambiguous declaration for peace. On the other hand, he was not very clear about his position on Gaza. He kept saying that maybe another military operation is an option. Maybe he would support that. Sometimes even attacking Netanyahu for not going strong enough on the Gaza issue. Annexation, the question of annexation of the Jordan Valley, that is about something like between 30 and 40% of the entire territory of the West Bank, and of course is a part of any future Palestinian state that we hope that will be the outcome of a successful negotiation. it will not happen. West Bank, that's obvious. But the center and right, they are united in supporting that, which we see as between campaign promises that obviously are not true to a true danger, and of course with declarations of Trump and the White House that might be much more forgiving or more tolerant to annexation. We are worried about that. We hope that, of course, in the best case of a narrow center-left government, or in the case that some unity government that will not be right with support of the center, we can expect at least freeze in these kinds of declarations, and going back to the basic, terms of reference as we've known them since the Oslo Accord in the last 25 years. And I have to stress again that the possibility of giving annexation in exchange for personal immunity for Netanyahu was prevented. So we hope that in a way we close the case on ideas like that, but we can never know. We always have to, keep close and keep our eyes open on that.
Thank you so much, Tamar. We know you have to go. Mauricio added that he had to leave the conference, the call, but he wants to thank you for your courage, for your leadership on all these important issues. And I had a lot of friends and family in Israel that I talked to before the election that would have voted for Meretz, but they decided to vote for Gantz because of strategical calculations. And I just think that they are still voters that support Meretz. So there's a lot of votes there that it's an anecdotal experience, but I heard this story a lot.
I know, we know that. It's the story of our lives in the last 10 years. I hope that once the Netanyahu era is down, this will change as well, and the ideological left can grow.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining. Partners for Progressive Israel is a 501c3. We promote the progressive values, elevating progressive voices from Israel, strengthening the connection, strengthening the partnership, fighting for democracy, for justice, and for our progressive values. And this is a very important partnership for us to be in, to strengthen, and we hope to have this conversation again in a more certain times when we know what the makeup of the government is and what our role is and how we're planning to fight for the future. Thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you, Gili, and Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova, everybody, and please keep an eye for the Hatikva slate announcements, the list, and how to actually go and vote. This is an opportunity for us to double or triple our power at the World Zionist Congress and advocate for progressive values together with Meretz and our other partners in the World Zionist Congress. So thank you very much. Thank you everybody for joining, and we hope to see you soon, and check us out at Partners for Progressive Israel. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.